Now we would like to take questions from the audience and our viewers participating virtually. So from those of you here and those virtually participating, we have been collecting your questions, but there's still some time remaining to tweet your questions using the project Twitter handle @career_pathways or the webcast series #CreatePathways. So let's see, we have a question here from Jana Griffin, and this was posted prior to the webcast starting on Workforce 3.1, their website. Jana asks, I would like to hear some innovative ideas for creating successful partnerships directed at getting adults trained for in-demand careers. Being located in a small town, we will generally have 1 or 2 jobs for each career type. So training a lot of people for a specific career is problematic. Do you have some suggestions there, Tony?
We serve four counties around our college, and they're not large metropolitan areas, so we don't typically train hundreds of people for a particular company per se. But what we do throughout our college, and our adulthood students become a part of this, is work with area employers. What are their needs? Are there internships available? So that students may go into a program like a technology program or health sciences, industrial education, or what have you, but we've already linked something up with the employer. They have the opportunity to get involved with internships, and oftentimes those lead, and many times by agreement, into the actual job once the student has completed the program. The partnership is also invaluable because it's the employers who help design the curriculum, so that we know more of what they need. It's more tailored toward that. We don't want students graduating with a degree that doesn't really give them a purpose, give them a lot of great information, a lot of ability to think about things, but we also want them to be able to be workforce ready when they step out there.
Can I add something?
Sure, Matt.
You know, we had a convening recently, and we were a little larger community, but we asked the question, we brought business leaders to the table, and we actually identified several, I'll call it 5 or 6 core competencies that every one of the businesses would need in order to have a successful candidate come into an entry-level position. So many times the industries, and this would be, again, for the small towns, so many times those industries, they'll train the more technical skills actually in the industry, but so many of those industries are looking for those core competencies of reliability, team player, problem solver, communication. And so when you draw and create maybe a training program that focuses and emphasizes those core competency skills that are real world, then works perfect for meeting the needs of a small community.
Great, thanks, Matt. We have another question here that came from that building partnerships has typically been a focus of, for program administrators. Typically, you think about it in terms of what do program administrators do, or at the state level, or even we've talked about it in terms of the federal level here today. But this question says, how can teachers play a part in building partnerships?
I'll take that one.
Okay.
You know, it's so critical, and I've said this before. Program administrators might not want to hear this, but the most important thing that happens in our schools happens in the classroom between the teachers and the students. And when teachers are involved and wanting to get more invested in developing these types of partnerships, as federal Perkins money does mandate that there's business partners at the table, the teachers have to be very inquisitive, ask lots of questions, and open the line of communication to partners that they can create, as well as talking with program administrators. As a program administrator, I know that I have lots of connections out in the community. I can't bridge the gap to connect with every single one of them. Exactly. But when I find a teacher that's willing to open the door, I can help with facilitating the conversation to make something happen in that classroom or within that program that will facilitate that experience for the student to ultimately walk out with some type of career pathway focus and some technical and of course, some core competency skills.
Great. Thanks, Matt. We have a question from Teresa Mudgett, also from Workforce 3.1. She asks, what are some best practices for connecting healthcare organizations that need employees with higher education degrees to better connect with workforce development and health and human services who have people with entry-level skills. How does one persuade the health information services manager, for example, to look at where someone should start in this field when they're working on their bachelor's degree? Mary Alice, would you like to?
Sure, I might have some helpful resource, or be able to guide this person to some helpful resources. I'm thinking of, first of all, of the recent competency model that the Department of Labor developed around health informatics. This is, ETA has a competency model clearinghouse, and you can find that at their website. And these are models that they build with industry associations in very detail. I mean, these take quite a bit of time to build, and they build these pyramids of competencies that start at foundational levels and then work their way up to more advanced skills and competencies. And along with that, too, is a career ladder building tool. It's a tool to build career ladders. So you can go and work with the HR manager that you're talking about, and bring the competency model, talk about how to customize it to their needs, and also build this career ladder tool that helps you sort of put people where they are right now or where they're going to start and then move up the organization. So there's a lot of customizable tools out there. Another thing in terms of finding best practices is that there have been some big investments in healthcare training and employment services and healthcare models. The Health Professionals Opportunity Grant is one that's underway right now through HHS. Mm-hmm. So I would Google that and go to their website. They're developing TA resources, and they have some things happening on that front. And I would also say that there's been some philanthropic efforts in this area. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the Hitachi Foundation, for example, funded Jobs to Careers, which was a work-based, hospital-based program to bring low-skilled adults onto career ladders within a hospital and move them up while they were working. So again, that might be a helpful spot. And then I would just say, in general, I think that there have been quite a few workforce intermediaries across the country that have worked with hospitals in particular. And the partners tend to be the workforce intermediary that sort of brings together the key partners, the employer, obviously, to be clear about what are the skills and competencies that they need. Often community-based organizations that can provide the key support services, the education providers, either adult basic ed providers or community colleges, and then the workforce investment system, the one-stops and the WIBs. And so I do think it is, again, bringing together all the players that can support that student through their journey and make sure that what they're learning is in line with what the employer actually needs.
Okay, great. Okay, so this question comes to us from AC Anderson. To Matt, how long did it take to establish partnerships and begin enrolling students?
Well, with the two examples I have in the class, with Job Corps was about 6 months. And that was streamlined a little bit more, mainly because I was only working with one entity. And it went relatively fast. And I think the key part about the timeline is who's at the table originally to participate in the conversation, meaning if it's a person who can't make the decision, it takes a lot longer because that person has to take that idea back to a person who's making the decision or people who will make the decision. In the Job Corps example, we had basically decision makers at the table, and henceforth everything moved relatively quickly. With Goodwill, it was about a year to a year and a half, and that wasn't anything against the people at the table. We just had a lot of people at the table, meaning the community college, Cal State, Long Beach. And the more people we had at the table, the more time it took to try to bring as many people into the conversation to have an ultimate outcome. So it really just depends on the decision-making people that you have at the table and how many entities. The starting small, I think, is obviously a good idea, and then you can get larger as time progresses and as you solve some of the problems.
So one thing that you spoke to, I wanted to follow up on is how did it, the partnership, what happened when people maybe changed jobs? You brought up this idea of, did that ever happen where you had people who were on your team and then all of a sudden that partner's gone and now what do you do?
You know, that's part of the sustainability of having the right people at the table. When you build the system, the system is not exclusive to the personalities or the persons associated with the decision.
That's a great point.
It's the sustainability of a system that regardless of the position, so long as there's a foundational core belief that this is good for students, that the system will continue so long as it's, you replace somebody who has the same vision.
So that's a key thing to keep in mind. Don't build a system around an individual person. So we have Pam Shore, must be from our live audience here, I think, today. So do your community colleges have developmental classes, or are your students sent to adult education classes? This question must be for you, Tony.
I'll speak to the state of Florida. Florida's state college, community college system does offer both developmental education, which is remediation for individuals who do have a high school credential, like a high school diploma or a GED. And we also do offer adult education. We offer both, essentially. In the case of Indian River, and I think this would largely be true of my colleagues around the state, two things would be similar. One is it's not at all unusual. We might recommend somebody who's in developmental ed, if they meet other requirements, that they may simply want to go take their classes out in adult education, get their skill set up higher so that they're ready for college credit courses. And the other side is Florida a couple of years ago developed a statewide adult career pathways system. So we're all very much on the same page of, hey, we want our students to exit adult education college ready, so we do work very hard on that, and get into a post-secondary program.
Okay. Looks like we just have time for one last question. At Jacob Mullen tweets, in your opinion, are there any must-have partners to grow a strong career pathways, system? Anybody want to take that one?
I'll start with it.
It's also? Okay, great.
Say, I always look for the dollars, because the fact is adult ed students need dollars, I think more so than any other group of students. So you want to make sure that you're working closely with groups like financial aid, foundations. If you're the program administrator, make sure you work closely with your chief financial officer, understand how your dollars come in so that you can make sure your students have great resources in the classroom, but that they're going to have the financial resources to go into a post-secondary program also. So there are many good ones, but that's where it starts for me.
Matt? Okay, Matt.
Yeah, I wanted to add, any partners that allow or facilitate internship so that your students get some real-world experiences is really important. Again, we want our students, as they go through their career pathway, whatever it might be, and we help them, we think we're helping them figure out what their passion may be.
Right.
It's so important that they get an actual real-world experience in whatever that area might be. So those partners that can provide internships is great. Again, an additional critical piece are partners that can provide wraparound services. And I alluded to Job Corps and Goodwill that can allow facilitation of career ladder, any counseling services, financial aid and support, any of those type of support services, wraparound services that can help the student in their next steps.
That's great. Mary Alice, you had some comments there.
Yeah, and I would just say that, if you look across the country, you can see a lot of different career pathway efforts, and sometimes they have different partners, and sometimes they start in different places. In some cases, it's a really strong partnership between the workforce investment, or the public workforce system, and community colleges. In other cases, it's strong partnerships between TANF agencies and community colleges, or secondary and post-secondary institutions. So I would say that the key thing is to start, is to not be deterred to think that you can't do career pathways. It's to work with whoever's willing to work with you, and start there, and then you get some momentum going. And whoever you can work with to help clear barriers for students to get into education and training, or to get back into the labor market, that's a career pathways program. So that's a start. Building a system takes more time.
Right.
But start with your willing partners.
Where you are, right?
Yes.
Where you're planted. Okay, thank you all.